Good afternoon and welcome to Little Steps Live. Today in Singapore, my name is Nikki and thank you for joining us. Whether you have a super driven child at home who's revising at every opportunity, or you have the more laid back kid who claims to have everything under control, there is no doubt that exams are stressful for children and parents alike. The pandemic hasn't helped either with reducing exam stress. Many children feel that they are running behind because they've not had enough time in the classroom to fully understand certain concepts. If your child feels anxious and stressed before exams, it can be difficult to know how to help them, besides encouraging them to take regular breaks and keeping them fed and watered. And if they are reluctant to pick up their books, how do you encourage them to make an effort without nagging them too much? Your child could also be struggling with certain learning difficulties or developmental issues. And if so, what are the signs to look out for? Today, we tackle these issues with the help of a professional who's here to tell us how we can handle the stress of upcoming exams in Singapore and across the world. But before we get started with our topic, a few friendly reminders from Little Steps. Now, we are live twice a month, and if you want to be reminded of our live sessions directly to your phone, make sure to check out our Facebook events calendar and simply click the topics that you're interested in. Don't forget to sign up for all our weekly newsletters across all our cities in Asia, from Hong Kong to Singapore to KL and beyond. The link for this will be in the description below. Now we are live, so feel free to ask us any questions, add comments, and interact with us right here, right now. And if not, don't worry, we will get back to you after the live session is ended. And if you feel uncomfortable leaving comments or questions on our Facebook page, don't worry, you can also email us at editorial@littlestepsasia.com. The link will also be in the description. Now I would like to welcome our guest. I would like to introduce you to our guest today, Dr. Geraldine Tan, Director and Principal Psychologist at the Therapy Room. She has over 2 decades of experience working with individuals who suffer from mental health issues such as anxiety and depression, which can often appear during the run up to exams. The Therapy Room also runs a Camp Global, a biannual camp to help kids cultivate mindfulness and learn about stress management. The next event will be held in December 2022. And to secure your child's space, you can email them at contact@thetherapyroom.com, and the link will also be in the description below. Welcome, Dr. Tan. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you, Nikki, for such a beautiful introduction and all the reminders for the parents out there where they can get all the resources online. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's great. And I'm saying hello from Singapore, and we are in Orchard Road. That's
Awesome.
where my center is. Yes.
Beautiful office. Great view as well, I see in the back.
Yeah. Yes.
I also want to remind our guests today that, as usual, we will be splitting up today's discussion in three main topics. The first, a healthy approach to exams in Singapore. The second, clinical science in children. And the last, exam tips for parents and kids. So let's get started with our topic. The first one, a healthy approach to exams in Singapore. So Dr. Tan will get straight into it.
Yes.
How to motivate your children academically without pushing them too much?
I like the first part, how to motivate, and then
Yeah,
I heard the word push, and I go, oh my gosh. So one of the things that I want to remind all parents is being very careful with our own mindset. Okay,
yeah,
because if we want to motivate our children, we want them to feel excited about it. But
right.
parents, if we think about it and we use the word push, right? It is such a chore for us. It's such a pain for us. So maybe we can have a different choice in our words. Perhaps it is to motivate them, perhaps it is to guide them, or to encourage them. So, first, when we approach them, our own mindset about what we are doing with our children. So, it could be that I would like to encourage my child. So, what are we encouraging our children in? What kind of learning are we encouraging them to do? Okay, and if we are looking at guiding, so even with that change of words, you already have a direction for yourself. Push, we don't know what we are pushing our children in. Okay, to push for higher grades, it doesn't make sense at all. But when we use the word guide, mm, what should we guide our children in? Perhaps it could be something that they are not doing so well in, and we would like to guide them. A concept that that is lost on them. Perhaps we can guide them. Okay, when we talk about motivate, we look at an angle. What is exciting about that angle? So we want them to run to the destination or to the ribbon. Okay, bash through the ribbon, but what are they attaining? So what excites them? So this could be a few things that parents can hold in their minds as they approach their children, who are already hearing the words examination, assessment, and looking at it with so much trepidation.
Mm, absolutely. No, I think
Yeah.
that's totally true in so many ways. Pushing doesn't usually help, I think, to motivate and excite your children about the exams, which is already a dreadful thing to experience. So no, I think that's a very good comment that rather to push, we should motivate and excite our children.
Hmm.
Now, exams are going to start here in Singapore very soon. What advice do
Very.
you have for children about to sit your exam? We had a little chat as well that your children are about to sit some important exams, and
I
it's
know.
coming. So I'm wondering, what advice do you have for children about to sit their exams? How to keep them calm? How to keep them level-headed?
Well, it's something that, I have to practice myself, right? And also not to be worried, because I used to get so worried about my own examination. It's like, oh my gosh, if I fail, it's the end. So, one of the things that I do want to remind parents as well as the children is not the end. Your life doesn't end with that one examination or that one assessment.
Yeah,
um, what really helps many of the children is that, because they especially in Singapore, they do a lot of assessment books, they do a lot of practice papers. So one thing that I always remind them is that despite the whole different exam setting, it's just another practice paper that they are doing. And
very
that
true.
really helps many of them. I think it really sealed in for me when my daughter goes for ballet. Okay, and one of the examinations that she went for, so three of the little girls went in. So the mummies being mummies, we were all standing outside. We were listening to what was happening inside. We couldn't have visuals of, but it's okay. We could hear. And then I heard the music start, and then it stopped. And then it started again. So now all the three mummies were very curious what happened inside. And my daughter went first, so I knew that she was the first one in. And we were like, okay, girls. So when it came out, we are like, what happened? But before we can even ask, the little girls were like, oh, she started and she stopped, she forgot her steps, and it went on and on. We are like, oh my gosh. And being Asian moms, immediately we were like, you did something wrong. But the darling coach that they had put things in perspective. She asked, did you manage to complete it? How were you when you did it? And the girls went, oh, she completed it. And my little girl went, yeah, I did. I think I forgot the step again, but I completed the routine. And she says, well, they're not only looking for whether you miss a step or not, they're looking for the entirety, and they have another metrics that they're looking at. So you might just do well. And three mummies were looking at each other, going, what is she talking about? But there is so much truth in whatever that she said. Our children and us get hung up about one question that they cannot do, but actually they completed the rest of the paper. So
Absolutely.
if we get stuck with one question that we cannot complete and think that the whole examination is a failure, then we are really just doing ourselves a disservice. And happy to say, my little girl actually got a distinction for that. I
Oh,
don't know.
wow.
It was very funny, but
Yeah.
it was such an affirmation for the learning process. It wasn't a grade. We were all prepared that she was going to fail,
Mm,
but it was such an affirming process that, sweetheart, no matter what, as long as you've tried your best, you've kept your composure, you've remembered the rest of the routine and executed it with precision, it
exactly.
is good enough.
Absolutely. I think you make such good points there to try to, first of all, try to make exams look less scary, that it's not the end of the world, that in the end of the day, it's all about actually doing it in the first place as well, completing the exam. And as you said, whether you miss a question or not, just continuing with the course. I think it's very important. I think it's important as parents to instill this confidence in their children as well. Great, great. And that brings me really nicely along for my next question. How do we help our children to deal with disappointing exam results? Because it can happen.
Okay, so that is really difficult a question, right? Um, Again, calibrating ourselves and helping ourselves remember not to um, jump to certain unhelpful remarks, which I do know many parents
Yes.
tend to do. For example, I told I told you so sort of statements, right? Like I told you to study, but you
Mhm.
wouldn't study. I told you to sleep earlier, and you didn't sleep earlier. So these are unhelpful comments. The other comments is asking the highest marks. I don't know what it does for the
Mm.
parent, but certainly it does nothing
Yeah.
for the child. So they already feel bad and they are standing in front of you feeling
Of
really
course.
horrible, and then you ask for the highest marks. They are going to feel so put down by that particular question. So certain statements, let's remember to refrain from asking. Instead, we can ask them, how do you think you did on your exam? Right? So put the marks aside. How do you think you did? Because examination papers have different sections. It may be a certain section that has gotten them down, it could be a certain topic that they are struggling with and they are able to identify. So when they are able to identify, you can go to that particular topic specifically. Sometimes they're struggling with the lengthier essay questions because they're not as eloquent in terms of writing.
Mm.
Sometimes it's the multiple choice questions which trip them up because you need to run through it really quickly and
Mhm.
they had made certain careless mistakes. Or just talking about it reminds me of where we have to color in for the multiple choice questions the little
Mhm.
bubbles for
Yes.
the digitalized
Yes.
marking. And sometimes they miss C and they miss the number and the
Yeah.
bubble, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
It can be confusing because
from
they're so
that,
close together.
yes, and many times if they have no time to check, you
Mhm.
miss one number, everything else is wrong.
So
And
true.
that's why they fail. And that's why they obtain a disappointing result, and not because they do not know how to do it. So,
Mhm.
finding out the specific cause might help them, rather, might be more productive and constructive rather than saying, what's your grade?
Of course. Great. Thank you so much. No, that's really helpful, and I think That's really good advice because it's very difficult to deal with your child who has just received very disappointing results. And of course, as you said, you yourself want to be disappointed, but that is not of service to your child. So you wish to get down to the bottom of why they feel that
Mm,
they have gotten the results that they got.
yep.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to topic two. If you've just joined us, we are today here with Dr. Geraldine Tan from the therapy room in Singapore. We are talking about dealing with exam stress, tips for parents and kids. We've just tackled topic one, which is a healthy approach to exams in Singapore. And now we're going on to topic two, which is clinical signs in children. This is more if you feel that your child could be having learning disabilities or developmental issues. So we're going to go into that topic and to see what signs are there in children to notice that so we can get the help that is necessary. So what are the key signs to look out for to know that your child is struggling potentially with learning difficulties and or developmental issues?
Yeah, so we've lumped two different disorders
Yes,
together.
yes, yes,
And there are more issues, right? But
of course.
if we look at the learning issue, so the very common learning issue that we do know of, that are seen in the schools, you have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, you
Mhm,
have dyslexia, dyspraxia, dysgraphia, the auditory processing disorder, and the list goes on. I guess it is very difficult for us to look at a child and say you have an issue because it's not written on their foreheads. But when they're in school and there are little other friends to do some comparison with, we realize that, hey, sometimes you notice them struggling to catch up with their peers, despite them being very diligent and putting in a lot of effort. So we might want to try and find out what is going on, right? Or you see your child and you're talking to your child and they seem a little bit spacey, or they are not paying attention to what you say. And
mhm,
parents tend to complain that, oh, my child is lazy, they're not listening to me, they're not focusing on
mhm,
what I'm saying, or not focusing in class. And the teacher is also echoing the same thing. Maybe that is a sign that they need some intervention rather than labels. So we are very cautious with, labeling the child negatively,
mhm,
or even to label the child, because even when we do our diagnosis, because the signs and symptoms can overlap. So we are also very careful not to dish out the labels so quickly.
mhm,
So a child that is not able to concentrate or not responding when somebody calls them may
mhm.
not just be may not just have an attentional issue, but may have an auditory processing issue, where the information that comes in auditorily becomes garbled in their heads and they cannot respond the way we want them to respond. But this is happening all at the inside their brains, right, at a neurological level,
Yeah.
until we do a testing for them and obtain the proper data. It's hard to pack down and say this child has this disorder, and it might not be fair to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we probably would need to remind teachers,
Mhm.
parents, if your child is struggling, to just find out and collect as much evidence as possible and go to a professional and lay out all the signs and symptoms for us to make a proper diagnosis, or to recommend the proper testing that the child might need.
Yes. Which
Mm,
leads me on to the next question. If you said you are noticing such signs, you are collecting such evidence. First of all, what kind of age do you usually notice these things with when it
mm.
comes to learning disabilities? Like how
Mm.
young does it normally start?
Excellent question. Some of them start showcasing their difficulties as young as 3 or 4 years old,
Okay.
right? But
You
at
would
three or
notice it
four
at
years,
play group or something. Sorry to
sorry.
interrupt. You would notice it at play group or kindergarten because they're not behaving exactly the same as the other children or interacting the same as the other children.
Yes, so they already have difficulty catching up with some of the more regular activities that
Mm,
the children are partaking in. So then we are able to catch it. For
mm,
the developmental disorders, um, some of them, so for situations or disorders like autism, some of the parents actually are able to notice some of the signs as young as 2 plus.
wow.
So yeah, so we can do the testing or the diagnosis as young as 2 years, 7 months.
Okay.
But again, it would be we would tread very cautiously. We
Yes.
would not simply just dish out a label straight away. Yeah, so typically we would try and encourage the parents and the school to observe a little bit more. So when they're in kindergarten, we do a lot more intervention. When
Hmm.
they are in primary school, then we would do more of the testings. So by that time, there is already the interventions done, and then the child's brain is a little bit more developed, and they have
Hmm.
learned sufficient knowledge for us to do an adequate amount of testing.
Fair enough. Interesting. Very interesting. And then let's say I am noticing such signs in my child and I go to the therapy room. What are the next steps? So we do the clinical
Mm,
trial, we do the testing, and then is it fair? It would be advisable for the child to stay in therapy to continue on with with practicing in order to conquer her learning or his learning disabilities. What are the next
mm.
steps once you've recognized the issue?
Yeah, I think if we go further back, is who do you go to first, right?
Yes.
We're assuming that we come to the psychologist first.
Yeah.
So for the younger ones, sometimes parents are more comfortable going to the pediatrician, which is perfectly fine. They are very comfortable with the pediatrician, and the pediatrician is familiar with the child's progress, and that would be the first stop. Okay,
Mm,
so sometimes parents go straight to us, and that's perfectly fine also. So, what the psychologist does is they would do a consultation, they will find out all the background, and then from there, we would suggest what are the next steps. Do we do testing to verify certain disorders? And then after we verify them, then would it be intervention? What kind of intervention would be necessary? It might not be with the psychologist. The psychologist covers the more emotional aspects. They can cover the more behavioral aspects.
mhm,
Um, they journey with the parents to help the parents navigate through all these difficult times. But there would be a team if we look at disorders. Definitely, there'll be a team. If
mhm,
we have a child with autism, then you have your ABA therapist, you have your occupational therapist, your speech therapist. For your child with dyslexia, they probably need to go into therapy to help them with their learning process. So it could be with a speech therapist. So not always do they stay with the psychologist, but we can always do check-ins. So every 2 years, we repeat the test again to chart their progress and to see whether there's anything that else that needs to be done, or if we have missed anything at all. Yeah, so we also work with the school, because sometimes with learning issues, developmental issues, mental health issues, they do present behavioral concerns as
mhm,
well as social issues. So
mhm.
we work with the school so that the school knows why they are behaving in a certain way, and not treat them as naughty children or violent
Yeah.
children, and to work with the parents and the child to provide that optimal learning environment for the child.
Interesting. Thank you so much. We actually have a question from our audience, which is great. The question is, and this is from our email, and I just want to remind our audience that you can contact us via on Facebook, but you can also email us with your questions. The email address is in the description below. It's editorial@littlestepsasia.com. So the question is, I'm starting to notice that my daughter fidgets a lot when she does her homework or when she does her studies, but I can't tell if she's just stressed or has extra energy as a child. What to do?
Yeah, so without much more context and without observing the child, it is very unfair for me to peg down anything
Fair
onto the
enough.
child. But I suppose, every parent will stare at their children, and
Mm,
as Asian parents, we would expect the child to sit there holding the pen, diligently completing their work, and not move any other muscles. But children will be children. If my legs are hanging off a chair, I would swing my legs.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, if I'm staring at my study material and it's a little bit boring, I might twirl my pen or play with my hair. And
Mhm.
these are filler activities, not quite indicators of an attentional disorder. Yeah, so it may not be that, but perhaps this parent is actually spot on. Perhaps your child is stressed. And the very fact that you're able to see that tells us that you know your child. Perhaps it is time for you to tell the child to take a break from whatever that he or she is doing. Or your little girl, you mentioned, right? Your little girl, and just have the child go take a drink of water,
Mm,
walk around for a minute or two. And I always say these little breaks that we give them is
mm,
actually like us blinking our eyes. It
mhm.
helps to refresh the whole system. And then when they sit down finally, they are able to continue their work, with a very refreshed, the whole person becomes a bit, calmer and more ready to push on to the next task. Again, I used the word push, and I did say let's not use the word push.
I know what you mean. Motivate our children to the next task.
Yes.
We actually have, I hope we've answered your question at the best of our abilities. We actually have another question, which is always great. I love questions from the audience. Please keep them coming. So, question two. My son is always studying in his room, and I want to provide him personal space when he works in his rooms. Do signs of stress only show when my child is studying, or are there any signs I should pay attention to in the daily practices? Thank you so much, Dr. Geraldine. I hope that makes sense. I
Thank
hope
you.
the question makes. Are you? Do you want me to repeat the question, or did it make sense to you?
I think it does. I
Yeah, perfect.
and perhaps I can approach it this way. I think that the parent is very very sweet, giving the child that personal space and giving them the distance, some breathing space
Yeah.
to just do their thing, right?
Mhm.
Now then, what it leaves the parent, and most of us would identify with that, is then okay, if I let you do your thing, then how would I know if you're stressed? So how else can I see that, right?
Yeah,
um
exactly.
you can see it in a variety of ways. So our Asian children, some of them are not very overt in telling us that they are stressed,
Mhm.
but we can either see it or we can hear it. Okay, how do we hear it? Loud music that is playing sometimes helps us. Big sighs that they go and you go like, oh, what is wrong? So we can literally hear them making sounds. Or this is really common with the boys who game, okay? The louder they play and they shout, they're shouting in their multiplayer game. Is it multiplayer game? Yes, the multiplayer game.
Yes.
And that it's crazy. You go like, well, do you really have to shout so loud? And it's in the middle of the night. So some of them actually express their frustration through methods like these, right? How do we see sometimes that our children are stressed when they're not eating well?
Mm-hmm.
Or another youth that I was dealing with, he started ordering a lot of food, three people's portion, and started binging for a period of time. Now, the parents knew that, but they didn't know what they were seeing.
Mm-hmm.
So they were getting receipts and they were wondering, how come you're eating so much?
Mm-hmm.
But because the little boy was, or rather the teen was, quite skinny to begin with, they didn't realize what they were
Mm-hmm.
observing. Yeah, but if you notice any out of the ordinary sort of behavior, as parents, we are very sensitive to our children. So you can check in with them and ask them if everything is
Mm-hmm.
okay, if everything is all
Okay.
right. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Mm,
you. So it's recognizing the abnormalities, even if they stay in their room and they keep to their own space. You can still recognize the small abnormalities that you would as a parent because you're around them 24/7 most of the time. Okay, great.
yes.
Which brings me on to
Yes.
my last question of topic two, which is clinical signs in children. How to recognize if my child is struggling with their mental health, whether it is anxiety, depression, or as you said, a potential moment of binge eating, or the other way around, anorexia or bulimia, any kind of stress, signs of mental health. How to comfort them, how to, as you said, recognize the abnormalities, but how do we approach them in a way that they don't feel that they feel comfortable with our approach, because it can be very tricky as a parent to approach someone, especially your child who is suffering from these mental health issues, and without feeling attacked.
It
Yeah.
is very difficult.
So what is the best, what are your tips
Mm,
if to how to comfort them in the best way?
Yeah, so this is something that is really difficult if you notice your child having, you know, s-
Mm,
something out of the ordinary. So it doesn't have to be like
mm,
depression, anxiety, or one of the disorders. It can be as normal, a
mm.
developmental
Yes,
change, right? It could be
yes,
transitions from one school to another, from one grade
absolutely.
to another. Them having friendship issues, or having a bout of illness. I see that very often in the teens or even the young ones, where they have a bout of illness and they cannot go to school for a couple of days. But with COVID, a week they have to take off, or 2 weeks even. And then they start to feel really scared when they have to go back to school. They're worried about not being able to catch up. They're worried about not their friends asking a lot of questions, teachers asking a lot of questions. Now, they may or may not talk about it. So, what parents can do is, that there is something going on with your child. And sometimes it's just sitting with your child and having that moment with them where you go, I know something is wrong. Is there something you would like to share? And that's about it. Sometimes parents say, no, but I need to confront. Now, what happens when we confront is we then elicit that defense mechanism of the other person, in this case, your child, because no one likes to be
No.
confronted. When we are confronted, we go into battle mode where we either protect ourselves or we fight back. So you have your kids fighting back, and then parents saying, my child is so naughty, my child is so rude. All I'm trying to do is to find out what's going on. So what your question is very important. How can we be present for our children who might be feeling under the weather in terms of their mental well-being? So in this case, parents have always been there, right? And we just need to sit in their personal space and not intrude into their personal space. And
Mhm.
they would then share. It would take time for them, but they would then share because they know they're not going to be judged. But if you confront them, their perception is you are judging me. So
Mhm.
sometimes coming for counseling doesn't mean that we work magic in the sessions. It
Yeah.
is only because we sit with them and give them that neutral space, which parents have always been giving them, that care and love and that space. But now, when they are a little bit more aware, they are also trying to figure out whether this space that my parents are giving me, is it safe, or is it going, am I going to be beaten down? So
Mm.
parents, your choice.
Very good. Thank you so much. That was very enlightening. Thank you. Yeah, giving that space, and I could totally understand with the fight or flight. If you feel if you feel confronted, you're automatically combative usually. Very good. Thank you so much. We're already moving on to our last topic, which is exam tips for parents and kids. If you've just joined us, I'm here with Dr. Geraldine Tan, director and psychologist at the Therapy Room in Singapore. We're discussing dealing with exam stress, tips for both parents and children. And we're just finished clinical science in children. And we're now moving on to our last topic, exam tips for parents and kids. Now, we are live, so feel free to ask us any questions, add comments, interact with us right here, right now. If not, we will get back to you after the live session has ended. So feel free to ask us any questions at any time. So now, moving on to our last topic, which is exam tips for parents and kids. A very great topic right now in Singapore since the exams are coming up. Um, a fun question: what kind of activities can parents and children do together to beat the stress of exams? Are there any fun activities that you can suggest to kind of take away that stress?
Yeah, so I've got three, and you can park many different activities in that three categories.
Mhm.
And it's something that the first one is something fun. Eat. I know a lot of Singaporeans love to eat.
Yeah.
I think across the world too. Yeah, but oftentimes, the children tend to tell me that I've got no time to eat. I've got
Mm.
so much to study. So they do eat, but they might not eat very healthily. They might sit at the desk. They might eat junk food.
Mm.
Um, Parents might call them out to eat dinner. They say no, I don't want, and they eat later or earlier, or they eat at weird timing. So one of the things that I always encourage the family to do is, you know what, go out and eat a nice meal,
Nice. That would
yeah.
definitely take away the stress. Absolutely.
So nourish your body and fuel your body, right?
Mhm.
The second one is movement breaks. So not only just getting up, earlier you heard me say getting up, getting a drink, going to the toilet and just taking a snack. So
Mhm.
just little small movement breaks. But I always encourage the family or a parent to just walk with the child. Now, exercising for mental health is actually easier than most people think it is, because it is not intensive. It is not something that you have to do for hours on end, but it
Mhm.
can be done in like 15, 20 minutes, except that it has to be done every single day. I mean, we bathe every day to keep ourselves clean, right?
Yeah.
So you can definitely exercise for mental health every day. Just 15 minutes to 20 minutes a day. Just walk. You don't have to talk because sometimes they're so tired, even their jaws can't move. So just walk with them.
Yes. No,
And
and
the
also just a nice path, nice boulevard somewhere in a park will definitely ease away the stress as well.
yes, yes. Oh, yes. Now that you mention it, yes, it's something that we call bilateral stimulation. That means the right and left side of the body is moving.
Yeah.
Okay, and yeah, so I call it a little massage for the brain. Can you imagine every day you give your brain a little massage for 15 minutes? How awesome is that,
It's so
right?
awesome.
Yeah.
But,
So yeah, the effects might not be so quick and so apparent, but do it consistently. It will help the mental well-being of the child as well as the parent. Mm.
mm,
And the last one is something that our children often don't do, which is rest, scheduled sleep. They are so sleep deprived. And often you hear them say, I can't finish my studying. I sleep at 5 a.m. And I go, what time do you wake up then? 6:30. I said, that's not enough sleep.
the nap.
Yeah, so but they feel so bogged down and so stressed that they need to complete their studies, or they are chatting with their friends because they say that's the only time we have. If not, every other minute and hour is taken up by other activities.
Yeah.
So yeah, these three things I find is super vital. Is it really fun? We can be creative about it, but I would say more than fun, it is very vital if we want to keep our children mentally healthy.
Mm,
Eat, walk, and rest.
absolutely. I mean, that's three key things we need to do in life anyway. And do more exercise, more sleep, and more healthy foods. And it's definitely, yeah,
Mm,
I remember being a teen and having being really sleep and food deprived during the exams period. So
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
think it's very good tips. Now, which brings me on to the next question. What tips do you have for parents? Because some parents might be dealing with just as much stress as their kids during this exam period, and some parents
Yes.
might adopt a more laid back approach and leave the children to it. So, what do you say to parents who are overwhelmed with stress themselves during this exam period? How do you calm them down?
How do we calm the parents down, you mean,
Yes.
right? Okay, so the first thing I want parents to do is really for them to have their own rest.
Mm,
Take two steps back. Your
mhm,
child's got it. You know, your child is in charge of their own examination. You're not.
mm.
And you're not going to sit for the examination also. So take two steps back. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if you can actually hear, but I've got the little kids next door.
Yeah, they're having a great time.
They are. So they are doing therapy, and it's a social skills therapy,
Yeah,
and they're having so much fun. Makes me wish that I was there too.
I
Sorry
have
about
been
that.
no, I have been quite impressed with you staying so calm and collective because I've been hearing them for a while, but they're
Yes,
having a
they
great time.
are.
Yeah,
It's 3 p.m. in no, it's 3 plus in Singapore, so the schools are out, and therefore it's a little bit noisier here because the children are coming in. The mornings are for the mostly for
yeah,
the adults, and then the kids are coming in now. So if you're hearing fun, that's therapy. It's okay, and it
exactly.
is good. They're having fun too.
The best kind
Yeah.
of therapy.
Yeah, yes, yes, that is true. So, yeah, for the parents, take two steps back. It
Mhm.
is not your examination. So, trust your children. Your children really have, we know that they are putting in effort. Many of them are putting in a lot of effort. Now, the other one where you're able to take two steps back, then take note of the tone of your voice. Often, when we are tired or when we are stressed, our tone of voice gets a little bit higher pitch, we get a
Mhm.
little bit more agitated, and we don't realize it, but it comes across quite harshly to the children,
Yeah.
right? And you feel agitated and you don't realize that you feel agitated. So if we just simply tune in into our own voice, we might be able to catch ourselves, yeah, and then indicate to ourselves that okay, we need to calm down ourselves or take one step, you know, to just relax ourselves.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Mm,
So just
yeah.
parents,
And
take a few steps back. Your child has got this.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Fantastic. I love
Yep. And the last one
it.
is so earlier I talked about the children eating junk food.
Yeah.
Now, children eat junk food. The parents sometimes also eat junk food together with them, right? Because they too are stressed. So it helps when the whole family eats. Yeah, I don't want to use the word healthily, but just being a bit more attentive to what you're putting in your body.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it helps that there are more colors in the food. So if we talk about something fun, then I would love for the table to be filled with different colors. I mean, junk food, we think of potato chips, we think of one color and everything brown or everything baked.
Very big.
No.
Yeah.
Mm, so, whether it is a nice salad that it has different colors in it, whether it's a table full of Asian food has your veggies, your greens, your orange, your yellows, and all the different colors, have it on the table. It ensures that it perks your mood up visually, and you get all the different vitamins and minerals, which helps with, you know, your mental health, not just your physical health.
Absolutely. Those are all great advice. Thank you so much. Which already brings me to my last question of today's session. And I think we've already discussed this, but we can just do a few more tips. What do you think are the best ways to boost mental health, well being during exam? We've discussed regular sleep, good food, movement. But are there any other tips that you would advise us to boost mental health during this stressful exam period?
So a little bit of a overlap here,
Yeah,
but again, three different things. You have your food, which I spoke about
yeah,
extensively, and the sun.
that's such a good point. I think people are really what during the exam we're so stuck inside studying, only looking at white pieces of paper. It is time
Yes,
to get out
yes,
there.
yes. So having that opportunity just to go out there,
Yeah,
yes, we can walk, but even just looking up from your pieces of paper that you were talking about out into the road outside, the trees outside is actually very, very useful, because they hop onto pieces of paper, onto devices, from
mm,
one device, whether it is their phone,
yeah,
Netflix, or Disney Plus, which is another device,
yeah,
or they are on the computer games and they're surfing one device to another. Oh my gosh, they have an overstimulation in their brain and
completely.
they're not getting enough vitamin D.
Yeah.
And this is one big thing that I realized during COVID. It was really quite strange. And we just, in my practice, we just found that out by accident, because there were a few people that were coming in feeling very fatigued, very, very exhausted, and not feeling too great. Their mood was not too great.
Hmm.
So they thought, oh, maybe I have thyroid because they have thyroid in the family, or it could be diabetes, or it could be something else. So these clients, they actually went for a blood test, and it was so interesting. What was lacking wasn't anything else except vitamin D, and these
So
people were
important.
not active. Yeah, so when we realized that, we're like, okay, everybody get out, go out and soak up the
Yeah.
sun.
Go take a holiday
Everyone
in
was,
Thailand. Go get
yes,
some sun.
people were so worried about going out because
Yeah,
of the COVID,
which
right?
is
But
understandable.
mm,
And
yeah,
people were, I
during
mean, across
examination,
the world, we all stayed indoors in order to protect ourselves and others. And
yes,
then that feeling kind of overwhelms us. And then when we are free to go again, we're just kind of feeling a bit cagey whether we should or should not go.
exactly, exactly. But this behavior is mimicked during the examination period by so many
Mm,
students. They
of
just
course.
hide at home. They're, caved in at
Yes.
home. So, yes, go catch the sun.
Okay. So
And the
that is,
last one,
yes, please.
and the last one is hydration. So, water.
Yes.
So, yeah, many times, and it depends. I said water. I didn't say coffee or caffeine. I said water.
Yeah. H2O only.
Many people load up on caffeine,
Yeah.
whether it is the coffee, teas, even cocoa, the different sodas. Yeah, so a lot of caffeine and not, just hydrating themselves. They don't
Yeah.
realize it, but they are dehydrating themselves.
Exactly.
So, yeah, we want to remind everyone, please hydrate. If not, you get your headaches,
Yeah.
and already you're so stressed. So
Hmm.
many times they don't know whether their headaches are tension headaches, migraines, or the lack of hydration.
So true. So true. I know so many people who don't drink enough water. All fizzy drinks, Coca-Cola, coffee, tea, and then I see them drink maybe one glass of water in a day. So no, it's definitely important to keep hydrated. Dr. Geraldine Tan, I want to thank you so much for this super interesting talk, and I hope this has helped parents in Singapore and across all our cities who are watching out there to deal with exam stress. If you want to find out more about the therapy room or make an appointment with the therapist, you can call them at +65, which is the Singapore code, and that's 64678903. Or you can email them at contact@thetherapyroom.com.sg to book a session. All the information will be in the description below. And I want to thank everyone for joining us at Little Steps Live. I hope you had an enlightening discussion with me and Dr. Geraldine. Thank you so much, Dr. Geraldine.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having
Absolutely.
me.
Now, and if you'd like to know more about Little Steps or watch similar videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media, or even better, subscribe to our newsletter. I want to say goodbye to everybody and good luck with your exams. And goodbye and have a great day, everyone. Thank you again, Dr. Geraldine Tan. Have a great day too.